welcome back to the Rooftop Fire Pit. One of the questions I get a lot from business leaders when I travel around the country working with them is, how do I overcome the anxiety that goes along with a sales presentation? You would be surprised how many people actually deal with this issue. You know, anxiety before you getting on stage, before getting on a sales call, before getting in front of investors or donors or a room of people and making an offer. This evokes a primal fear and level of anxiety that is hundreds of thousands of years old. You see, humans are status creatures. We sit atop of the food chain because of our ability to form groups that can overcome what Mother Nature throws at us, to acquire resources and ride out the storm and, you know, maintain our resources. It's how we've evolved socially. Status is a huge part of that. You know, Russell Brunson talks about status is at the epicenter of what causes people to buy. And it's true. Status is a major, major factor in your behavior and the behavior of those who buy from you. So when we think about, you know, getting in front of folks and making an offer or asking for money, this semi-conscious primal response comes out where, you know, we get kind of clammy, the hair stands up, you know, we get tunnel vision, our heart beats faster. You know, we start thinking about, what if I fail? You know, what if they don't buy? There's all this stuff, and it's different for everybody, but in many ways there's a lot of similarities. What I want to leave you with is that this is a very common thing, is to have these kinds of reservations, this anxiety before you do a sales call. Now, the problem with it is that in order for people to buy from you, follow you or invest in you or believe in you, they must feel psychologically safe and they must feel a sense of connection to you, according to Daniel Coyle. So, you know, in order to put those conditions in place, you can't look like you are super anxious. If anxiety is dominating you, if it's owning you in the room, then it's really hard for other people to feel a sense of connection to you. It's going to be very hard for them to buy from you. If you're in your head, if you look like you don't trust yourself, they're going to feel unsafe just by definition of that. And again, that will affect your bottom line and your ability to make a sale or to get a yes in those situations. So how do we deal with that? If this is a natural human reaction, what can we do about it? Well, there's actually quite a lot that you can do about it. You know, I still teach a lot of special operations and law enforcement folks who have to go into very high stakes situations. And if they fail, people get killed, or very, very high level missions can fail. And so we have to put a lot of work and energy in what can we do to overcome this anxiety so that we show up and we essentially own the room. I will tell you that one of the biggest problems I see these days is that people don't rehearse. I've witnessed recently a special operations officer who was in a country, what we say downrange, and you know, it was a very strategic mission that was mostly advising interagency folks and host nation people. And that's where success or failure hinged. It was the ability for this young officer to connect and advise very senior government civilians. Well, the initial meeting that this captain was going to go and give was with the ambassador. And, you know, success or failure hinged on this. And there was no rehearsal. There was no rehearsal that took place before on the ride. You know, they talked, the sergeant and the captain talked for a few minutes on the truck ride over to go see the ambassador at the embassy, and that was it. But yet, if they were given a tactical mission, I guarantee you they'd take 96 hours and they would rehearse that mission, you know, 6 ways to Sunday. They would do dry fire, live fire. They would crawl, walk, run. They would introduce contingencies, full mission profile with all the air assets. You know, and it's the same way with us. We'll rehearse things that are things that we're comfortable with, right? But when it comes to something like a sales pitch, most people don't rehearse it. They just want to go in and wing it. They just want to go in and see if they can just kind of make it stick with instinct. And we're raised this way to think, well, you can do this. And in fact, Eric and I were just having a conversation offline about that. And a lot of that is changing the language, right? Getting away from this notion of winging it into a notion of high stake engagement. Like, how do I show up being fully present, fully available, fully engaged so that the other party feels psychologically safe and leans into me? Like, that's what I want to do. And there's several things that you can do for this, to overcome anxiety before a sales call. The first one is I encourage folks to do their homework before the legwork. If you're going to get up in front of a room and talk to a room of people, if you're going to meet with a prospective client, if you're going to meet with donors, how much homework have you actually done on this person, right? And I'm not talking about just Googling their name, although that's not a bad start. I mean, we live in an age of information where you can find out a treasure trove of information, of useful, not creepy information, but useful information that allows you to get a sense of connection to the person across from you or the people across from you before you ever even walk in the room. If you want to own a room, the first thing you do is you do the homework before the legwork. You can talk to third parties and other people who have met with this person or these people before. There's a lot of research that we just leave value on the table by not doing that. And if you just walk in and say, hey, how you doing, so where you from, you get what you pay for, right? And your competition is going to smoke past you. Another thing that you can do to rehearse to get ready for a sales call or a sales presentation is to rehearse. If you're going to do, a 10-minute sales presentation or a 30-minute sales presentation, you should rehearse that thing from beginning to end at least 5 times before you do it. I'd prefer 10. Make you a little workup sheet with a little line with where you can write the date in, and do 10 reps, minimum 5 of that sales presentation. And do it live, at least a few of those for someone so that they can give you feedback. People just don't rehearse, and it cracks me up that we don't rehearse, and then we can't understand why people didn't buy or dial into us. So that's one thing that's super important. Another thing you can do to overcome anxiety before a sales presentation is if you're going to be in a physical room, whether it's a stage that you're going to stand on or a boardroom, or if you're going to be at a retreat, get in the room and do what we call a leader's recon. This is where you get in there and you get comfortable with the space. You see, humans are mammals, and mammals are creatures of space. We have relationship to space. The same way that a dog pees on a tree, that dog is marking his territory. Now, I don't want you to go in the office and pee in the office. That will not work. That's what I've heard. What I want you to do is go in there and get a relationship with the space. I want you to get a relationship with the walls, touch the outside of the walls. Bo Eason talks a lot about this. It works really well. But also, just sit where some of the investors are going to sit or where some of the prospects are going to sit, and look at where you'll be. Stand at the front of the room and actually go through your talk beginning to end. If you're going to have slides, do a test fire on the slides. If you're going to use a mic, test the mic. But go through the whole thing, stand in the space, and really just breathe and breathe it in, get a sense of that space. What'll happen is when you walk up to the mic to take the mic, you'll be so dialed in and related to that space, it will give off a semi-conscious level of psychological safety that already prepositions your audience to buy from you, to lead from you, to follow you, to believe in you, right? Another thing is ask yourself before you walk in the room, what do I want them to think about on their ride home when this talk is done, when this presentation is done? Really think about that. Close your eyes and think about that. What do I want them thinking? It can be very, very powerful. It can really, really help. And finally, before you walk in to do that sales presentation, or before you pick up the phone or you get on that Zoom call, can you do 3 lower body breaths? This is what Dr. Belisa Veronich teaches in her book, Breathe. I'm one of her students. I love the way she teaches this. It's just called a lower body breath, but you put your hand on your belly with your mouth. You expand on the inhale, expand your belly, and then you just squeeze belly to spine on the exhale. Just do 3 of those, eyes closed, before you do your sales presentation. It'll drop you from that fight, flight, or freeze sympathetic state into that calm and connect parasympathetic state. Really powerful stuff. When you're done with the presentation, do 3 of those lower body breaths afterwards, and you'll be glad you did. It's a micro recovery that gets you ready for the next engagement. So those are just a few things that you can do to manage your anxiety. Remember, anxiety is just energy, and leadership is the management of energy. Anxiety is primal. It's always going to be there. We just want to get it out of our head and put it out there in the room, and then it becomes an electric connection to the people you sell, to the people you lead, the people you inspire. All right, so thanks for what you do, and we'll see you on the rooftop.